I gotta
Good
tell you
stuff
something.
today.
Every week I see you, you look with a week younger. You to know that my husband has no idea where he's gonna pay that money back from. But we have to be very careful because there's a lot of scammers in this industry. You know, whatever you put your mind to, whatever you call success, wherever it is that you want to accomplish, if you put your mind to it, and then not only you put your mind to it, you get emotionally involved. You get emotionally involved. How do you get emotionally involved? Either by contacting professionals with a strategy how you're going to manage your debt, either by start to pay off whatever you can. By the way, it's the same thing, the same idea with finishing Shas. I know that this is how you do it. You know what?
GitGelt, the wisdom for your will.
Good morning, Reb Sholom. We're on. Good to see you
Chaim,
back.
how are you?
I'm doing very good. Baruch Hashem. How you doing, Reb Sholom?
Baruch Hashem, I woke up this morning.
I gotta
Good
tell you
stuff
something.
today.
Every week I see you, you look with a week younger.
I appreciate that.
I still
Uh,
have to find out the secret.
yes. And when I know what the secret is, I'll let you know.
Good. So what are we going to talk about today?
I'm open. You tell me, and let's
I
let's
think
just
I
go
think
at
we
it.
should address one of the questions that came in.
Okay.
I think it's something I like, when questions come in, I like to choose the questions that I have that I see. I think more people will appreciate listening to it, and it can be relevant to many people. So this is basically how I choose the questions to answer. So a question that came in that I think we should address: a person has a lot of debt. I think he wrote like $200,000 in debt, and he's earning $150,000 of income, and he tried many businesses before and he failed. And this is basically how he accumulated so much debt. And he loves the idea of reverse budgeting that we spoke about. He loves all the ideas we speak about. He loves, but his challenge is if he starts now, he has such a big hole to fill up on the ground that he has to build before he can even make it happen. So where does he start? And I understand that he's not in a situation that he can save too much anyway. So where does he start? And it's so easy. At kind of question, yeah. Until here's the question. I think it's so easy for such a person to fall into a certain mindset. No, for me, it's never going to happen. Whatever I do is not going to be good anyway. So why don't I just give up? So I think we should address that question.
Yeah, it's I very much empathize with that situation. I've been there myself, and it's definitely in when you're in that moment, when you're experiencing that, it's very difficult to see a way out. But as you have said, and I personally have experienced, there's always a way out. Let's hear what your thoughts are on how do we identify that way out. What do you have to say about that?
Right. But first of all, I don't know if the person asking the question is an entrepreneur or an employee.
Hmm.
I know you're an entrepreneur, so sometimes it could be easier for an entrepreneur to have the mindset, yeah, I'm going to go out one day, I'll find a new idea, I'll find a new adventure, I'll find something to make a deal. If you're an entrepreneur and you always do deals, you always make things happen, it's b'derech hateva that something should happen in your life that will give you a windfall, like a big sum of money, and it should give you a push ahead. But somebody who's
Right.
an employee working for wages, and even if he's going to get a bonus like COVID Hanukkah, what is it? It's not going to help him too much. He needs like a big push, something big to happen in order for it to work. As long as he's
Right.
going to stay as an employee. So I think, I don't know the situation of the person asking the question, but I think we should address it in a way that even employees should have a certain way of thinking or a certain idea that maybe will help them down the road.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to talk about credit first. The thing is, I have no idea. The person didn't give me the details, what kind of debt he has. He only shared that he has $200,000 in debt. I don't know if it's with creditors or with it's personal friends or family, credit cards, banks, financial institutions. I don't know what type of debt he was referring to, but I think I'm talking specifically about credit. So many people are afraid to have late payments on the credit or have any negative items on the credit reports, because and rightfully so, they were they were trained and they were taught, or they were, whatever reason, they have this mindset that you have to be very careful with your credit. And I'm all for it, and I speak in my book about it, and I encourage people to be careful with their credit. The thing that we have to understand is that we don't need the good credit because the good credit is an end goal. It's only a means to an end. We need credit in order to accomplish certain other more important things, like if you ever want to buy a piece of property, if you ever want to borrow money, I'm talking about healthy loans for your business to expand your business, etc., etc. You need to build credit for these reasons. Sometimes you need it for in case of an emergency, whatever the situation is. But the credit is not something. It's not like avodah zarah by itself. I need credit because I need to have good credit. Now, I never suggest somebody to borrow money that they can't afford to repay. But sometimes you have to understand, if you got into a situation that you took credit, for whatever reason you took credit, and now you're in a situation that you have such a big hole that you feel that you're, stuck in, and you have, let's say, a few $100,000 in debt, paying crazy amount of interest, and no way that you should be able to get out of it. You have to understand there are certain laws in the country protecting you. The starting from making settlements with creditors, or from filing bankruptcy. Some people, when they hear the word filing bankruptcy, oh no, it's not me, I don't want to file bankruptcy. I agree with you, you should try to avoid it, but I don't agree with you that you should try to avoid it at all costs. There is a certain cost that it makes sense for somebody to take a deep look on his credit. Does it really make sense for me? For me, not for the creditor. Stop. Chase made enough money off you. Now you have to look on you. B'derech hateva, if I'm not gonna do something dramatic, I'm not gonna afford marrying off my children. I'm not gonna have any retirement. I'm not gonna be able to, my income, instead of saving, it goes to pay the credit cards. And maybe it's gonna take me another, I don't know how many years to get out of this hole that I dig for myself. So maybe you have to take a closer look, if it makes sense, to maybe give up on your credit, and it's gonna come back. You wait a few years, you have credit back. But for now, maybe you should say, I get into geendigt. Let me make a new start. It reminds me of the story. There was a guy that owed $50,000 for somebody. Let's call him Reuven. So Reuven owed $50,000 for Shimon. And in the middle of the night, his wife wakes up and he sees Reuven can't sleep. He's turning from one side to the other. Doesn't know what to do. She asked him, Reuven, what's going on with you? Why can't you sleep? And he said, I tell you honestly, I have to pay back Shimon tomorrow $50,000. I have no idea where to take the money from. I don't have the money. So the wife said, what's the number? What's the phone number for Shimon? So he gave her the phone number, and she starts dialing 2 o'clock in the morning. He said, what are you doing? Why are you waking him up? He said, don't worry. So she calls, and Shimon picks up the phone like half asleep. Yeah, hello. And she says, yeah, this is the wife of Reuven calling. Yeah, why are you calling in the middle of the night? She said, because I want you to know that my husband has no idea where is he going to pay the money back from. And you should know that it's not coming tomorrow. And then she puts down the phone. And then she tells it, even now you can go back to sleep. Now Shimon is not sleeping. So
Yeah, and there's a moral to that story. We tend to feel guilty. At the end of the day, Chaim, the community that we're talking to, we're raised to at the end of the day be honest people. We feel guilty when we can't fulfill our obligations. But I think it makes it easier to understand when you're talking particularly about credit, where credit isn't a one-sided street. It's not like the bank did me a favor and gave me money, and now I have to feel guilty if I can't manage to fulfill the terms. Credit's an arrangement or agreement between both parties. The same way that I took a risk by borrowing the money, assuming I'm going to pay it back. The bank also took a risk by making the money available and inducing us with all types of um, of marketing and so on. They're also taking a risk. So it's to feel guilty, I think, is perhaps something we have to get past, and maybe that's what you're addressing. But we have to recognize that this was an agreement between both of us, and we both agreed we're going to do our best. And the bank also understands, and therefore you have these mechanisms in place that allow a person, if they simply can't afford it, to use it. And feeling guilty about it, and therefore not taking advantage of these tools, like you said, can do more damage than it can good. At the end of the day, it's an agreement that both parties made, and the bank knew very well going into the deal that I may not be able to pay back the money. I may have to claim bankruptcy. I may have to find some way to cut out the interest payments, whatever it is. But to feel guilty, we have to get past. Because,
Right.
like you said, that can be one of the main distractions that hold us back from moving forward.
Yeah. Let me tell you a few things on that, Shulam. First of all, I want to make a disclaimer that anything we're talking about is just like two balabatim talking. Everybody should ask his own rabbi what he's supposed to do and not to do. Halachically speaking, we're not going into that. But having said that, guilty. First of all, just between you and me, usually when I get a question from a person like the person asking me, usually the bank already made a lot of money from him. Let's just get that out of the, or let's just make that clear. I don't know how much they made. I don't know how many years this is going on, but usually they made some nice money off this guy already. But that's not the point. The point is, first of all, guilty. Why should you feel guilty? You know, the Rebbeinu Shalom organized this world in such a way that this is what happened to you, and you know it's over. You tried your best, and you didn't get to it. Why should you feel guilty? You know, if you feel guilty, so many people don't even want to try because they're afraid they're going to feel guilty. Why feel guilty? You know, even Hashem understands that a person needs to have a forgiveness once a year to clean up everything and have a new start. You know, I daven a lot of times. I daven in a Sephardi shul, and they have a tourist Nedurim every week. Every Friday morning, they have a tourist Nedurim. And you know, in the beginning, I saw that, and I was, you know, I started thinking, can I trust these people? I don't know, you know, any promise they're gonna make me by Friday morning, it's gonna be gone. I mean, in best case scenario. So, so, and then, but the truth of the matter is, the reason we do a tourist Nadurim before Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, whatever, you know, everybody does it according to their custom. It's because Hashem understands. No, you make mistakes. You tried your best. You made some promises, but don't feel guilty. Don't feel bad. You know, control or delete. Let's start again. Okay. But the point is, why should I feel guilty? And also, the other thing is, whenever somebody asks me something, should I do this or not? I usually answer by what's the alternative. I never answer a question. I almost never answer a question when you ask me a yes or no. I usually want to know A or B. And then we can have a very objective conversation, A or B. What makes more sense? Yeah, I want A and B. Okay, but in a situation that you can't have both, what makes more sense, A or B? And the same exact thing is in this situation. You bring me a situation of a person having $200,000 in credit card debt, and you're asking me what's the best, you know, what's the best strategy to go with? Should I keep paying it or not? So let's discuss the alternative. Paying the credit card, that means maybe not having money to support your family. Paying the credit card, that maybe it means not having money for chasanas, which is included in supporting the family. It may mean that you badly want to open a business and you can't open it because you're in the red, or you know, a whole list of things. So you have to understand what is the most important thing for me now, and all the rest is secondary. Once you understand that, you know exactly what you want to do, and you know as long as it's in compliance with halacha and it's a compliance with a whole bunch of other things that could be factors in this conversation. But why not go and do it? Because this is exactly the reason why you have the law. And you know, some countries don't have this law. So in America, it's some, if Chaz v'shulam somebody gets into such a situation, is lucky that he can get out of it. In some places they can't. In Israel, it's not so easy to get out of such a situation, for example. So I think that's the right approach.
Right. So if I understand correctly, you're saying the first step is to identify what your priorities are, what you need money for, and and then begin to think about how to allocate your money so you can pay off debt, but also be able to move forward in life. Is that what you're recommending?
That would be best. If that's possible, that would be best. But then you go to a different situation because what we discussed until now was assuming that it's with banks or creditors. What is if it's, your family, maybe your brother? You owe $200,000 for your brother. He was planning to put a down payment for a new house with this $200,000. Now he can't. It's a different situation. Now you're really in trouble, and you have to have a very honest conversation with, an open conversation with the person you owe the money. Listen, this and this is the situation. And what I see in most of the cases, not all of them, but most of the cases, the worst thing that a person can do is ignore it,
Right.
because then it's a whole, it's a whole the whole balagan starts. You're not responsible. If you have an honest conversation with the person that you owe the money to, and you tell them, listen, Nahibi Yedidi, this is the situation. I needed the money for this and this. I had a cheshbon, this was the cheshbon, but now didn't work out. I'm trying very hard. I hope very, very soon to be able to pay you back every penny. In the meantime, please allow me to throw in every month, every week, as much as possible. And
Right.
I can tell you, I've seen people who have a lot of debt, and they went out of the situation by every week or every month paying off some of it. Then a tax return comes in, you pay off even more. Then you have a bonus, you pay off even more. And then somebody gave you a gift, you pay off even more. And other people who don't do this, because they're waiting for them to have $200,000 to be able to pay it off. Usually, never pay it off, and this is where the trouble starts. But there's always a way out.
Right. I think what you said, don't ignore the situation. I think that's extremely important. But I would even take it a step further. More than not ignoring it, take ownership over it. Take meaning, more than not ignoring, be proactive about how you're going to indeed address this problem and take ownership, take the lead on it and be proactive about coming up with a solution. Now, with that in mind, I wanted to ask you, let's go back to the scenario of it being credit card debt. And as you recommended, it's important to identify the priorities, your financial priorities, and then begin to think about putting a strategy in place. Is there a tool or a methodology that you recommend using in order to make that happen? How would you recommend somebody, identify these financial priorities and create a strategy? How do you go about doing that?
So, in order to create a strategy, you need to speak to a professional. I would never tell you to just go and do it and with no plan, because the loss can be more than the gain. But maybe speak to a lawyer, maybe speak to other professionals. But we have to be very careful because there's a lot of scammers in this industry. A lot of scammers who will tell, yeah, come to me, give me $20,000, and I will just, if you don't have references and you don't know that you're speaking to somebody who is really capable and knows what they're doing, and they can really help you, stay away from them. But there are professionals who know what they do, and sometimes it costs money, but the cost that you're going to pay them is going to be less probably than the $200,000 plus all the interest that you're going to end up paying over time. But I'll tell you this. If you put your mind to it, one of the benefits of putting, like, going back to somebody who owes for a personal friend or family money, if you put your mind to paying it off, $1 at a time, $20, $100, thousand, as much as you can. Usually, what ends up happening is your brain becomes wired and focused, like an antenna goes up, that you need to attract another $20, another $1,000, another $10,000, because you want to pay off this person. And then all of a sudden, somebody comes to you and tells you, could you help me with, I know you have expertise in this and this software, and we need this for my business. Would you be able to come in the evening hours or on Sundays and help me put this together for my company, and I'll give you an extra $5,000? Is maybe without the consistency and the awareness, you would say no, because I don't have the time. But now maybe you're gonna start thinking, another $5,000 off from the debt. Wow, that's a good idea. Let me do it. And it's
Right.
only because you put your brain into action and to pay off for the person. That's why you're attracting ideas like that and opportunities like that. So it
So,
is important. for both reasons. Number one, that the person should see that you're working with them. And number two, because you might end up paying it off faster this way in actuality.
So it sounds to me like what you're saying is that the same way, in order for us to be successful in business, we need to create an environment that triggers us to be passionate about earning money, get rid of the furniture, whatever you have to do to engage that passion and drive. You can engage the same passion and drive when it comes to paying off debt. If you
100%.
really take ownership over it and you really feel that you want to make this happen, the same tools that you can trigger to make money, you can trigger to pay back money as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. But I got to tell you, Shulam, you scared me now.
Why?
I have to come to your house now because you're bringing it up so many times. I'm almost sure that you got rid of your furniture now.
You ask my wife.
I don't know what to think. I'm afraid to call your
Don't
wife.
you believe my walls are bare?
You should better get new furniture ASAP, or you're gonna have another, another one of your problems on whom to blame.
But yeah, you're right. But having said that, I do think I think this point is really important for you to state clearly that because I want to make sure I understand this. But we can become just as passionate and driven about paying off debt that we can be about making money. The same passion and drive can help us to get out of debt.
Absolutely, absolutely. Whatever you put your mind to, whatever you call success, wherever it is that you want to accomplish, if you put your mind to it, and then not only you put your mind to it, you get emotionally involved. You get emotionally involved. How do you get emotionally involved? Either by contacting professionals with a strategy how you're going to manage your debt, either by start to pay off whatever you can every by the way, it's the same thing, the same idea with finishing shas. I know that this is how you do it. When you want to finish shas for shulam, what do? You start thinking about shas, or you start thinking about the first daf?
I daven first.
So it's the same thing. You daven, and then you start taking action. You start ma'amusai. Without ma'amusai, you can't even get to the second word. You need that
And,
word
and,
first.
and I would like to just add to that there's a built-in incentive. We when we think about making money, we get excited because we know at the end of the day, the benefit of having that money is so worthwhile to push me to want to really become passionate and driven about earning a lot of money. I would go so far as to say I've experienced this personally that if when we put a plan in place to pay off debt and we start doing it, we get such a geschmack from paying off that debt that it gives us the adrenaline, it gives us the drive to want to continue. Once you get started, the same way you start seeing money coming in because you're doing well in business and you want to do more, once you start paying off debt, you get just as driven and adrenaline fueled because of the schmack you feel from being released from that debt is really a tremendous pleasure, a very pleasurable feeling. And it just and you just have to do it and it starts happening. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's also that you get many successes. A giant success is a combination of a lot of many successes. I remember once driving to Montreal, from New York to Montreal. It takes like 5, 6 hours to drive. And it I remember every time I saw a sign, how many miles is left until Montreal, it gave me a certain a certain enjoyment. Oh, okay, so we passed already that many miles. We passed already that many miles. So you have certain many destinations, many successes, and and that gives you courage, and that gives you reaffirmation that you are on the right pace, you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing. Just keep going, push more, and this by itself, as you said, it gives you the power and the koyach to continue, seeing that you succeed. Nothing frustrates a person more than working hard towards something and he doesn't succeed in anything. But if you can create somehow some mini successes, that's a game changer. That's what's gonna give you the koyach to continue until the end.
That's fantastic. We can all be that hero. We can all be hopeful and confident and resilient and optimistic. We all have that. Um, and I think that we enjoy pleasure. And I think if we like you're saying, if we just go forward, get past the guilt, get past the avoidance, and just take ownership and start doing it, the pleasure itself will become self-motivating.
Gewaldig. Moiridig. Anything you want to add before we finish?
No, I think I have you've given me a lot to think about. I need to kind of think further about it. So if I have more questions, I think I'll bring them up to you next week. But for the time being, I think it's if you've offered a lot of clarity, and I appreciate it. And I just like I said, I assume the listeners also need a chance just to kind of absorb it.
Yeah, and I just want to remind everybody, if you want us to address your question, put it in the comment section on YouTube, or send an email, or leave a message on the phone line, wherever you listen to it. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today. And have a wonderful week ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chaim. Looking forward.
Get Gelt, the wisdom for your well. Get Gelt, the wisdom